The seven pioneers of filmmaking. Orson Welles, one of the all-time great filmmakers, maybe the best. John Ford, King of the Western. That man, technically speaking, is probably the greatest filmmaker. Probably knew the most about movie making, more than anybody else. Directed, I think, I might have this wrong. I think he directed over 100 movies. Can you imagine? Can you fathom that? It's taken me a year to make a movie. Your average filmmaker needs a year, a minimum of a year, to make a movie. Over 100 movies. I might be making this up in my head. I don't know. Somebody take a look at his IMDb. Let me know. Over 100 movies. He only lived to like 70 years old. Crazy. Some of them were lost to time because he started in I believe, the silent era. Some of them are lost to time. We'll never see them. Never see them. D.W. Griffith, The Birth of a Nation, is a highly debated film nowadays, controversial. Hard to track down a decent Blu-ray copy, but you know, he's got so many greater films than just that. Even that one that spearheaded what we know of his career, Intolerance, is maybe his best movie. Crazy epic. Crazy great epic. John Cassavetes was like the first director to give a real authentic approach to dialogue and having kind of messy storytelling. The actors' tones would often dictate, I think, the direction of where things would head in the story based on their delivery of his dialogue. There's a big misconception that he improvised a lot. I think he had maybe one improvised film. The rest was, okay, we're going to rehearse this, we're going to do this, and based on how you deliver this and what the general vibe is of this scene, we're going to go in either the direction that I wrote, or we're going to change it up and do this and that, which is, I guess, a form of improvisation, but it's very organized improvisation. Francis Ford Coppola, that's another one. Another, in a different way, king of epic films and epic storytelling. You know, he was part of the New Hollywood crew and had The Godfather, Apocalypse Now, all these iconic films. Rumblefish is great. That's not really an epic, though. Interesting filmmaker. Dennis Hopper. Dennis Hopper is absolutely one of the seven pioneers. Dennis Hopper broke Hollywood. He broke the way that people made movies, and he is somebody who is not often talked about, which is deeply unfortunate, because even though he only directed about 4 or 5 movies, and I think one of them might have been a made-for-TV gig where he had to take over for somebody else and bothered one of the actresses. I think it might have been Jodie Foster or something like that. That was the end of the 60s. You know, it's often disregarded as just like a silly boomer film, motorcycle film, but it's the farthest thing from that. It is such a great movie, Easy Rider. That ushers in New Hollywood. Francis Ford Coppola, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas. So yeah, Dennis Hopper is absolutely one of the 7 pioneers of filmmaking. And the last is David Lynch, Yopuba. I think Lynch has been the most important of the 21st century. I don't know about that. Maybe. I'm sure there's a case that could be made for it. There's nobody really interesting. There's nobody interesting anymore. But if there is an American filmmaker that is technically still active that has something to say, it's probably David Lynch. Hey, welcome Kid Polaroid, composer of my debut feature Mass Day Lottery coming out in 2021. Great list, but needs more Carpenter. I love John Carpenter. He's not one of the 7 pioneers. 7 pioneer has to usher in a new way, and I don't think he did that. I think he popularized a niche in genre, but Tobe Hooper was doing the same thing in the 70s. I think John Carpenter has a lot more respect than somebody like Tobe Hooper, because unfortunately Tobe Hooper fell apart due to alcoholism. John Carpenter has a more consistent streak of memorable films. I'll absolutely agree with you there. But that's not a slight at Tobe Hooper. Tobe Hooper's Salem's Lot is one of my my favorite TV movie, but one of my favorite films in general. The atmosphere he creates in Salem's Lot is the definitive Salem's Lot to me. It's not something like Tommy Lee Wallace's It, which in many ways is an impotent adaptation, but is still truer to the novel than what Andy Muschietti put out, especially Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is a travesty. Chapter 2, they really should have kicked out Gary Dauberman, and unfortunately Gary Dauberman is directing the Salem's Lot remake, and I think he wrote it. It was originally supposed to be James Wan or somebody like that, whoever does the Conjuring films. Not anymore, though. Horror literally wouldn't be what it is now without him. I agree with that. I don't disagree with you there. But is that a good thing? How many guys try to be Carpenter now? How many guys suck Carpenter's dick when they make a movie? And this is part of it too, is you have a lot of directors, horror directors especially, that aren't trying to make new horror films. They're trying to recreate horror films they love. And you can't do that, because then you're competing with that. Something like The Void. The Void had great practical effects and absolutely nothing for a story. It had nothing to offer that was brand new. Practical effects, wonderful. Cool. But I can go to Spooky World and I can see practical effects, alright? You gotta give me something more than that. Make me laugh at least. Carpenter makes me laugh in a good way. They Live is a funny movie. Escape from New York has funny moments. Death X Curse. How were Carpenter and Hopper doing the same thing? Don't argue. Don't argue with each other. They don't have to be doing the same thing. Lynch and Hopper were not doing the same thing. John Ford and Orson Welles definitely weren't doing the same thing. But they represent a contribution to filmmaking and the way that things are the way that things work now. A lot of things need to be fixed. You know, I'm not unrealistic about the extent of my capabilities, but I would love to be able to make a dent in the right direction with this medium, because a lot of people have given up on movies. A lot of people have given up on films, and they see it as a redundant, dead medium, and I don't blame them for seeing them that way. There are very few good American movies being made. Certainly none this year. The closest thing wasn't even American. It was Werner Herzog. He's German, and he filmed the movie in Japan, I believe. Family Romance LLC. Abel Ferrara. He did Tommaso in Italy. Not an American film. And then the rest are all just a waste. I have a Letterboxd account. If any of you guys aren't aware, I do keep track of all the movies that I watched this year. 2020 films that were released in the United States in 2020, and also just a list of films that I've watched in general this year. And obviously it's not a fair comparison. We're going through the entire extent of movie history versus 2020, but it's so black and white. 2020 films are completely worthless. One of the most pathetic years for movies, and it's not just because of the coronavirus, I'll tell you that right now. But again, not a slight against Carpenter. I don't think that his impact has been I don't want to say it hasn't been a positive one, because I think it has been a positive one for the genre. But in terms of inspiring other directors and creators, I don't know if it's been that positive, because a lot of people just try to be Carpenter.